Hello! In this video we're going to be discussing what's new in 2017 AutoCAD Plant 3D. My name is Brandon Anderson. I'm a Senior Application Expert here at Imaginext Technologies. Now with this new 2017 release we have quite a few new features. Some of these though were included in the service packs for 2016, but we have the PID Painter. This is allowing users to customize the line color display based off of properties of the lines in our PIDs. They've made enhancements to the multi-port valves. This was a little bit challenging before. Sometimes we had to use equipment in order to successfully create and place our multi-port valves in previous versions, but now we have better control over that inside of the spec editor. Pulled pipe bends. Now the pulled pipe bend tool is nothing new, but we have this new option where we can right click and convert those pulled pipe runs into pipes and bends. Reference dimensions for isometrics. This is one thing that I'm really excited about. This allows us to place reference dimensions inside the model that then get referenced in place onto our isometric drawings. PCF to pipe. This is a tool that we kind of had in the reverse available before. We could always take our pipe runs and our line numbers and export those out to PCF, but now we can do that in the reverse. So we can bring in PCF files from other softwares and utilize them inside of Plant 3D. So this is going to be helpful for if we have really old versions of Plant 3D, or if we have projects that were done in AutoPlant or something like PDMS. We can use the exported PCF files of those different softwares or older models and bring those into a newer Plant 3D model. They've made enhancements to the equipment modeling tools, specifically in adding additional trim to the equipment. We can now add things like platforms, railings, ladders that are all grouped together as part of the singular piece that shows a better representation of how that equipment looks out in the field. Additional connector information. This is really just a deeper connection control within the project setup. We can do things like match the pressure class of a gasket to a flange. So it's just really deeper control of what we had already existing. Isometric enhancements. They have made quite a few enhancements to the Isometric Generator. Specifically where I've noticed this is when it goes to generate isometrics of things like bypasses or things that have quite a few branches coming off of them. It does a much better job at putting that on one isometric versus trying to separate that into multiple isometrics. And then as usual, Autodesk has been doing a great job at keeping up with the content packs out on the Exchange app site. So I recommend that everybody takes a moment to jump out to the Exchange app site and review what is available to you, because there may be some specs and catalogs that are out there that you may either be able to start with or be able to just plug and play and start running with them. One thing that is not new, but is certainly something worth noting because of the tighter integration available inside of Plant 3D, is new for 2016 and 2017. We have an integrated, on our structural tab, we have a dedicated button to export out to advanced steel. Now with structural detailing going away and advanced steel being the new structural detailing package, this SMLX file is the button utilized to kick out that file and share it within advanced steel. Now, once I launch that button, I can then choose to share it with either Revit or inside of Advanced Steel to do my detailing for my structural work. Now, because Advanced Steel and Plant 3D are a DWG file, utilizing AutoCAD functionality, I can then choose just to simply use an XREF and XREF in that detailed structural model into my Plant 3D. So then I can start visualizing and better see things like the plates of my connections, the bolts, any of that continued work that we just can't get within the structural tools within Plant 3D. Let's jump into 2017 and kind of start poking around with some of these new tools that we have available. Now I'm going to jump into Plant 3D, and I'm going to start on the P&ID side. Now changing my workspace to a PID, you'll see that I have a new tab called the PID Painter. Now, again, what this does is it allows me to color my lines based off of different properties of this line. Out of the box, we have two filters. We have color by service and color by size. If I turn this on, you'll see all of the lines that share the same service are also colored the same. If I change this to color by size, you can see it changes. All of my 8-inch are one color, 6-inch are another color, 4-inch, and so on. Now, inside of my project setup is where this is controlled. Now, I have a new tree underneath my PID settings called PID Painter settings. Here are those two filtered options, service and size. I can simply add a new one here, and we're just going to create color by spec. Now right now, it is named color by spec, but right now it's pointing to the property field status. I need to click on this so that I can simply identify it as a spec. There's all the lists of specs out of the box available. I select OK. I'm going to select OK again to cancel out of this. You'll see that I've got that new option listed here. So now when I come down and I select on here, all of my class 300s are now blue. My singular class 150 line is now red. So this gives us a little bit extra control on the visualization, allows us to filter through those different styles. Simply unchecking it goes back to coloring it by layer. In my piping model here, I'm going to switch my workspace back to Plant 3D and change my spec to a non-flanged. And with my pipe bends tool on, I'm going to simply just choose to route some pipe. I'm not paying attention to what its angle is. And for this demonstration, we don't really care. But if I change this to a 2D wireframe, we can kind of better display what's going on here. You see, as I hover over this piece of pipe, you can see the whole thing highlights. This is one singular piece, even though it's kind of displaying like there's an elbow there. That's really just how the software graphically represents that there's a bend. Now in my right click, I have a convert to pipes and bends. Once I've selected that and I hover over it, you can see that now these are all individual pieces. If I use my substitute part pull down, I can see that this is just a piece of bent pipe, but I can also swap this out for a 90-degree elbow. Once I swap this out for a 90-degree elbow, you can see I can visualize that that is an elbow. I can also go into my properties to verify the elbow, as well as come down here and see that it actually cut back a 90-degree elbow back to 48 degrees. Now that's nothing new, but we can see the change that's happening from this converted pipe. I'm going to toggle that off. I'm going to select these and delete it, and then I'm going to go back and just change my display back to realistic. Alright. Inside, I just got a blank piping DWG file open here. Now on my Home tab, next to my line to pipe that we've always had, we have PCF to pipe. Now on my ISO tab, I still have my export to PCF, and that's going to be designated by line number. But on my Home tab here, I have a new PCF to pipe, where when I select it, I then want to verify which line number PCF I have since exported, either out of Plant 3D or out of another software. When I select open, I'm going to get this dialog box where I can load multiple PCF files and load them in all at once. I can also map specs from AutoPlant, PDMS, older Plant 3D models here. Now this PCF file was exported out of this model, so there's nothing obviously to map here. I can either cancel or I can add new PCF files to the list. But when I select create piping, it's going to run through the status bar down here at the bottom, recreating it. I can also place these as generic objects and specs that I currently have loaded into this project, and certainly swap them out afterwards as well. When I select close, there is that pipe run that I exported out and brought in. It's also referenced in the correct location based off of where it was in the other model. So pretty cool, and it's just a deeper functionality that we had to utilize those PCF files. You know, it's something that's been asked for quite a while to be able to do that round trip PCF. Especially since we can export them out, it's very nice to finally see that round trip that we can now bring them back in. Just going to close this one down. And in this equipment model that I have referenced into my master piping model, I have my pieces of equipment. Now, right now I've got these bases sitting on them that are really just AutoCAD objects that I've attached to them. Just by using my Plant 3D functionality, I can always detach them and remove them. Now, that's nothing new, but what is new is through my right click, when I go into Modify Equipment, the dialog box is mostly the same, but you will see some added tools to this. Now, one thing that I want to point out that I'm just as excited about with this Add Trim button is this right here. So in previous versions, if I had to go change the diameter of a vessel or a tank or something, right, I had to go into my head, then my cylinder, then my bottom head, and I had to change all of these diameters in every single one. Now, by default, they're all linked together. So I only have to make that change in one place. This really saves time instead of having to come back through in each one of these. Now, I can always unassociate these so I can adjust them separately and create unique equipment objects. But most of the time, these outer diameters are usually the same. So if we change one, it's not usually until we close out of this box and realize, oh, I forgot to change the size of my head or that second cylinder or whatever. So I love this feature, and I've been hoping that this would come for longer than I'd like to admit. So one of the new tools in this anyway are the Add Trim. Now, if I select Add Trim while I've got the head selected, some of the options are going to be grayed out. But you can see I can add a platform, I can add lugs, I can add body flange at this level. If I select on the cylinder and I select Add Trim, I have a lot more options that are not grayed out. If I select Add a Platform, I'll see that I've got what type of platform it is, how the railing is set up. All of these dialog boxes are the exact same for what we'll see on the structural tools. I can also determine if I want to create a ladder. If so, how do I want to create that ladder? And again, this dialog box is exactly the same that we see on the structural side. I select OK there. I'm going to select Apply, and we'll see this platform appear onto our equipment. I can come down to the bottom head, add a trim, add some legs on there. Again, these are all fully dimensional, so I can make all these adjustments here as well. When I select OK here to apply those and close, you can see that I'm starting to get a more realistic version of this piece of equipment. Now, when I select it, it's all one piece. And keep in mind, this is just a representation. If I needed detailed drawings of this, so I needed my connections, I needed my weld, I need to understand how this is all bolted together, well, this is going to be something that I want to do inside of Advanced Steel. But this is really just giving us a deeper level of visibility for what that piece of equipment looks like. I select Save here. Now, back in my piping drawing, I can update that. And I can see this model updated for me, right? Nothing new, just AutoCAD functionality. Now, some of the deeper connector configurations that we talked about before. If I right-click on this and I go into my project setup, and I expand Plant 3D settings, and go into my piping connection settings, and I'll just go into one of the modifiers to show this dialog box. I can now add a property, come down to my gasket, and now I can match my gasket properties with the pressure glass property. So this is that deeper level of control that we have now with 2017. Close out of this. All right. So I talked about before how the isometric generator has really seen some improvements, as well as we have some on my ISO tab. I have some a new tool called reference dimension. This is allowing me to place dimensions inside of my model that then get pulled and placed onto my isometric. When I select this, I select a starting point, and maybe I select this steel point over here, or I can select the adjacent pipe down below. I can change this so that it goes vertically. I can see that dimension there. I can also classify this. Is it going to piping? Is it going to the building, equipment, floor level, the direction it's going, any messages that I want it to display. Just add a little note there and close this down. Similar to the notes that we've been able to place on our isometrics, if I change this to a 2D wireframe, you'll see that little note dialog, or that little note icon that we've had before, similar displayed now with the dimensions. So I can select it, I can go back into my properties and modify that, I can move the grips, use my perpendicular snaps to make sure that everything's all squared up, turn my display back to realistic, and now let's run I'm just going to run a quick ISO on this. I'm just going to do a window select of this area. Yeah, I'll just grab that area right there. Making sure that I'm grabbing this the area that we placed that dimension on, and I'm going to select enter. Run this on final ANSI C so I make sure everything's turned on, and select create. Now, my isometric is currently being run in the background. Now I can continue working. I just want to make sure that I'm not working on the area that my isometric is running. While we're waiting for that to run, if I jump out to my Exchange site real quick, you can see I've got that big X in the corner. Nothing's new here. I'm filtering right now by Plant 3D. But I can filter by catalogs and specs. I can then filter by free apps, and we'll see all the additional content packs that are available for free. So some of these may already be available. The pharma packs, the wastewater, right? Something that has already been created. The Vitalik connections, that's a big one. That some of these have been available for a while, but they're continuing to update this. So I definitely encourage you guys to jump out to the Autodesk App Store to review this constantly, because there's continual apps and content continually being placed up here. Now, inside of this software, the improvements that we're getting, both on the graphical side, which were made with Autodesk functionality, as well as or Autodesk continue releasing just with the plain AutoCAD out of the box, and how it displays, but as well as with how Plant 3D is continuing to evolve and continually get much better. Now, within this, for some reason, sometimes when I'm creating these videos, my isometric generator lags every once in a while. So I could continue to come in here, review the properties of this information, move pipes, because these are not being run as part of this isometric. If I pull this down, I can view information directly from here. I can change shop, from shop to field, adjust information directly down to the welds. Oops. There it goes. It created one isometric for that bypass, which we expected. I can see that bypass information all on there. It's not broken. It's not split up into two different ISOs like it has done in the past. As well as we can see that I've got that reference dimension, that all of it can be moved. I've got that inlet. Now I could have taken the time to done a perpendicular snap to make sure this was all square, make sure it came out, but you can also see that I can do skewed dimensions as well without any repercussions, and it'll still make sure that it displays it. Now there's still going to be some work to make sure that we pull this out and make sure that it's displayed correctly, but as far as being able to reference this information and actively place this, I love this, because now we can say, oh, it's so far from the floor, and when the construction crews get out there to place this or actually install it, they know how far it is from that nearest beam or from the wall or from the floor. We have this reference dimension that gets saved into the model. Now that's most of what we have for 2017. The last thing that I want to quickly touch on is if you have additional questions, if you want to know how any of these tools will apply to your existing workflow, or dealing with Plant 3D or any of the other softwares that Autodesk applies, make sure that you're reaching out to your Imaginate sales rep for detailed product information, to coordinate another demonstration either on this software, one of the tools, or pricing. Imaginate technical team that also provides detailed demonstrations of the software or specific tools themselves. And the way that we offer training is such a wide range, either personal training, open enrollment, over-the-shoulder mentoring, as well as customizing software for development and implementation. So if you're looking to implement Plant 3D or Advanced Steel or any of the other softwares that Autodesk provides, imagine it's there from the beginning to end. Education, discovery, making sure that the software is developed to your needs and your standards, so that when you jump in there, it's turnkey and you're just ready to go. I appreciate you watching this video. Any questions, please reach out. Thank you.